Today, I'm going to show you how I got this crazy marbling effect for this wallet using the leather dye and shaving cream method. So stick around if you want to see how it was done. I think this came out so good and I'm super excited to show you guys. This video is going to be a little bit different than my usual videos, but I wanted to showcase the process from start to finish, dyeing the wallet and then stitching it together and then burnishing, all that. So this whole video is going to be the whole process. So just sit back, relax, and yeah, hope you enjoy. First things first, you're going to need some tin foil. The colors I chose to go with are light brown and oxblood. I thought the contrast would be really cool. Next, we need the shaving cream, and you need the foam kind. The gel kind won't work for this. So just make sure if you're going to do this at home, you get the right kind, and this kind is super inexpensive, so it should be accessible to you. And then you're going to need some tape. Either masking tape or painter's tape works. Now I'm laying down some tin foil so that I can create a nice place for all the shaving cream and the dyeing to take place on without making a mess. And I've already pre-cut out my wallet pieces. I'm going to go ahead and tape the back of these pieces so that I can protect the flesh side from getting any dye on it. And it's definitely optional if you do want to dye the flesh side. In this case, I chose not to, which I think if I did this project again, I probably would dye the backside some color. And I guess this whole part, like taping the backside, could be optional, but I just didn't know how messy it was gonna get. I just didn't want to risk the project coming out bad if I didn't tape the backside. If you do this at home, you could choose not to do this part if you don't want to. Moving on to the next step, I'm just going to take some scissors and trim off the excess tape around all of my pieces. This is going to help clean it up, just make for a nice mask to cover that flesh side perfectly. I didn't think of this before, but watching it back now, definitely be careful when you're doing this step because the scissors could slip and cut your leather and you're going to have to restart that part. So just a heads up for anyone doing this at home. Next step, I laid out all my pieces on the tin foil and I'm using a piece of chalk to create a border around all the pieces. This is going to create the area that the shaving cream is going to go into and act as a guide for having enough shaving cream for all of your leather pieces. And next, you're definitely going to want to have some rubber gloves. These are black nitrile gloves. You definitely don't want leather dye all over your hands. Now for the fun part, go ahead and start laying down your shaving cream in that chalked area that you created. As you can see, there's definitely some gaps and holes that I didn't know was going to be there. I watched a lot of videos and tutorials on how to do this. From my understanding, you want to fill in those spaces as much as possible. They will affect the outcome of your project, so definitely try and get it as even as possible, and you definitely want a thick coat as well. After I laid down the shaving cream, you just want to use something flat to go ahead and smoothen out the surface of the shaving cream. There's going to be a lot of gaps and air bubbles that you want to make sure are flattened out. So I just used a piece of cardboard and I'm just doing my best here to try and make the most even surface as possible. Next up, I'm going to go in with my light brown dye. I'm going to use a dropper, and this is where you can take full creative freedom. You don't have to do what I'm doing. This is just what I thought. But from what I was going for, I wanted to go for that nice marbled effect. So I'm doing what I thought was the best thing to try and achieve that. So I'm creating lines, and I'm going to create alternating lines of brown and red and brown and red. But if you didn't want to do that, I could definitely see how this could work if you just wanted to do a random scattered pattern where you're just putting dots everywhere, or swirling patterns, circle patterns. I think honestly the options at this point are kind of endless, and every project is going to come out a little bit different. So feel free to just do whatever you feel during this part. I don't know if you can see it through the camera, but when the dye hits the shaving cream, it's really satisfying because it makes this fizzling noise. If you do it at home, just take a second to you'll notice it. All right, I'm going in with my oxblood next. I'm gonna create those alternating lines. If you don't know how this works, the shaving cream is pretty much a blank vessel for the dye. So basically, whatever design is put on top of the shaving cream is going to be the design that's transferred onto your leather once you press it onto it. It's a pretty similar concept to hydro dipping, if you're familiar with that. It's a process that's used where spray paint on water is used to create a marbled effect on objects. Or another thing is dip dyeing in the fabric world, where items are submerged in a dye bath for varying lengths of time to create a gradient or solid color effect. For my project, I chose to go with toothpicks, and that's just because I've seen a lot of people do a bunch of different things. You could use your fingers, you could use toothpick, you could use forks, spoons, chopsticks, anything. Just get creative. But what I was thinking was I wanted my dye to mix as little as possible. I figured the toothpicks would create the least mixing and make for nice thin patterns. And as you could see, I'm kind of just going through the whole thing and creating that marbled effect that I was looking for. Once I hit all the dots, like once with the toothpick, just didn't look marbled enough for me, so I just started slashing the whole thing and just creating these lines. I think that really kind of helped make that effect that I was going for. So the next part is you're going to take your leather pieces and you're going to start laying them down on top of your design. You want to make sure that the entire surface of the leather is touching the dye, and then you want to press down firmly, but not so firm that you're bottoming out the shaving cream. You want to try and eliminate those bubbles underneath the shaving cream. You kind of only get one chance at this, so you just want to make sure to go slow and press firmly, but not too hard. I started to get kind of worried on these pieces that I'm putting on the sides because you could see that on the right side of this pocket doesn't look like there's too much dye over there. So I was a little worried on how that would come out, but you'll see it ends up working out. But I didn't want to put those pockets sideways because the pattern that would go onto those pockets would be a different direction than the pattern that would be on the other pieces. Fast forward to time here, and I let these sit for about 5 minutes. I didn't want to let them sit too long, but I didn't want to make sure it was too little, so I thought 5 minutes was a good middle ground. And this is probably the most exciting part, was wiping off the excess shaving cream and revealing the dye that stuck to the leather. And I was thoroughly impressed, honestly, when I wiped it off and that marble pattern was stuck to the leather. I couldn't believe that it actually worked that well. The front cover and the inside cover were my favorite pieces out of this project. I like the way the pockets came out. They just weren't my favorite. They just weren't as good as the covers. And you'll see that in a moment here. Maybe I'm just hungry, but when I first saw this design come out, it reminded me of a strawberry cheesecake. Let me know in the comments what this design reminded you of. So this is one of the pockets that I was a little bit worried about, but after wiping the shaving cream off, I thought it still came out pretty good, so I decided to leave it the way it came out. Thought it looked unique. This is the other pocket that I was worried about, and when I wiped off the shaving cream, I wanted to see a little bit of that marbling more on the Peered logo, so I decided to redo just that side and put the pocket back onto a spot that wasn't touched previously. And honestly, at the end, it came out pretty good, which you'll see later on. After cleaning off all that excess shaving cream, look at how nice this came out. I love the effect that it's giving, especially on this cover. I think that piece came out the best. I let that sit and dry for about 20 minutes, and then now I'm putting on some finish, which I'm using Leather Balm with Atom Wax so that I can get that nice light sheen on it, but not too glossy. This also helps with the contrast of the colors. It just brings out those reds a lot more, and then also just changes the browns a little bit to make them a little bit more vibrant and contrast better. I wanted to do something a little different for this one, and I decided to re-dye the edges that oxblood color. And not all the edges, just the edges for the pockets. I really like re-dyeing the edges because it just creates this nice contrasting outline that just helps make all the colors pop better. Now that the finish is dried, I'm just taking a dry microfiber cloth and just polishing the outside. This is going to clean up the surface and just give it that nice shine. I love this clip. It's so gorgeous. It's got a perfect shine to it. It's not too glossy. It's not too dull. And some of those spots that the dye was sitting heavier on, it just looks like that's like the strawberry jam that's on strawberry cheesecakes. I don't know. Next, I'm beveling the edges that are harder to reach once everything's put together. I don't like to bevel all the edges, but just like this one, it's on the crease, so I just like to get it over with before I put everything together. Now I'm going to go ahead and re-dye the edges of the top of the wallet. It's just going to be easier to do that now, so I'm going to go ahead and dye them and then burnish them. It's easier to burnish it when it's flat like this rather than once it's folded and put together in the wallet shape. Next, I'm just going to go ahead and apply some toconol to the top of this and just burnish it. Also, shout out to you if you actually made it this far and are still staying for the rest of this video. I feel like 99% of the viewers might just be here for the shaving cream method. If you're still with me, thank you so much for watching this far. I hope you've enjoyed the video so far, so definitely let me know if you like this type of content. And I'm just going to lightly sand the part that I just burnished and repeat the process again just to get that extra glossy finish on the edge. And as you can see, that brown really creates that nice contrasting line, complements the secondary color, and also just brings out that red. And now I'm just doing the same burnishing process for the inner cover, and I'll go ahead and speed that up just so you can see, but don't want to spend too much time on it. Now it's time to stitch, and I decided to go with a nice dark brown thread. I thought this would complement not only the edges, but also the secondary color, which was supposed to be a light brown. That oxblood is definitely shining through a lot more, but you do see accents of it. So I'm trying to add more brown to this whole project from the edges and then also from this thread, hoping that it kind of evens things out a little bit between the red and the brown. Got to make sure we snip our thread ends and then melt the ends so that they are nice and secure. And just to save a little bit of time, and I know because stitching can be kind of repetitive, I'm going to go ahead and speed up the clips, and then I'll meet you back once I get to sanding the edges. I also just want to mention that in these clips, I'm just doing a traditional saddle stitch, and I'm using a 1mm thick thread. Now it's time to do the final beveling process. This is one of my favorite parts. It's so satisfying to finally clean up those edges that I've been handling through the whole project. Feels so good to finally just clip them off and seeing those sharp edges just come right off. I'd also like to mention that I'm using a size 2 beveler to do this. Next, I'm going to be moving on to the sanding part. Ever since I got this mini electric belt sander, sanding has been super easy for me. I have a full video review on this exact sander. It's made for jewelers and DIYers and woodworkers, and it also works great for leather. So if you're looking for something like this would be a perfect addition to your leather workshop. Ever since I got it, I haven't had any issues with it, and it definitely beats hand sanding. Now that I've cleaned up those edges with the sander, I'm going to go in with some light brown dye and re-dye those edges to really make those edges pop. That secondary brown color doesn't really come through too much on the marbling. I'm trying to make the red and the brown a little bit more even so that it's more cohesive and trying to create that contrast. Q-tips are perfect for this. They're really inexpensive and disposable, and they're also just really accessible to anyone. Last but not least, it's time to do the final burnish. This is one of the best parts because you finally get to see all the fruits of your labor come together. All I'm doing is I'm just applying some toconol, I'm taking canvas, and I'm just burnishing the edges. There it is after the first sweep, and that's the edge before I even started. Now I'm going to take some fine sandpaper and lightly sand the edge that I just burnished. And this is going to create almost like a more polished finish once I do it again. When you put toconol on an edge that's already been burnished, you actually don't need as much because the surface isn't as absorbent as the first time when you did it. So this is what it looks like after the second round of burnishing. You could see the difference from the first. It's much shinier, and I'm actually going to do this one more time. The more times you repeat this, the shinier that edge is going to get. But honestly, there's got to be a point where you just call it quits. I like to call it quits at about 3 times. And this is the result after the third round of burnishing. As you can see, it's super shiny, and I'm just gonna go ahead and do this all the way around the wallet. And this is the final product. I love how this project came out. I think the marbling is stunning. Came out so good. The colors that I picked were just perfect. I definitely want to try this again with other colors, or maybe even 3 colors. I'm not really sure yet. The edges, I think, came out really good. The contrast is perfect. The brown really just complements that red, and also just kind of makes sense because brown is supposed to be the secondary color in the marbling. I know this was a super long video, but if you somehow made it to the end, thank you so much. You viewing and watching this video all the way to the end honestly really shows your support, and from the bottom of my heart, I truly appreciate you watching this whole video. I hope you enjoyed it. It was really fun to make, and I'm really happy with the results. I think I might end up putting this on my website for sale on the small batch section, so keep an eye out for that if you want it. It's gonna be a 1 of 1. If you want it, check out the site. Let me know in the comment section what you thought of this. Did you think it could have came out better? Have you ever tried this before? Or are you gonna give it a shot now that you've seen a video? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave them down in the comment section. Also, let me know if you like these kinds of long form videos. I'd love to do more for you guys. And if you want to see more leatherworking content in general, make sure to hit that subscribe button. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.